All right, guys. So, welcome. This is another episode of your virtual travel party. Now, we're going to get started with Celine. She is a world traveler and Latina, and we're going to listen to her story of what is her biggest and most accomplished uh, trip or a travel accomplishment she ever
Yeah.
had. So, let's go. Take it in.
So my story is more on the lines of accomplishing like my dream, but more like my mom's dream as well. So what I'm gonna, I guess, touch on is different aspects of like my job, which is I work as a financial aid counselor, and I guess being able to afford going on a trip and then paying all of my expenses, my mom's expenses, and just overall, how to start that like at a young age. Because I did start traveling when I was like 19. So that's what I'm going to be like in a nutshell. That's what I'm going to be discussing. So, I mean, we did go to Rome. I've been to Rome before. I did study abroad in Rome for about a month. It was interesting, when I stayed there. I know my mother always wanted to go to Europe. That was like her dream. I guess I'm Dominican, so that was like her, I guess, epiphany. Like before I die, I need to like go to Europe. So me and my sister did decide to, do this trip for her. And my sister brought her kids, so that's another thing that I'm going to touch on, which is like traveling with children. It's the first experience that I've had. So it was kind of like all over the place because we had to make sure that everything was good. And when, traveling with children and making sure that, you have enough Pampers and all that stuff, I wasn't really used to that. Because I was always traveling either with my husband or with friends by ourselves, going to different places, doing wild things like jumping off of trees and stuff like that, because that's what I'm used to doing when I, go away. But so just short, when I was in Rome, my experience with my mother was a little bit different than before. I did kind of felt weird in terms of, I guess, my identity. During that time, I don't know if you remember the shirt that I had. I took one of the Chula shirts from Amanda, and
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people were like, "Oh, like, are you from a school? Like, what is that?" And I was just like, and then when we started explaining what it meant, they were just looking at it. I was like super awkward, and I was just like, So I just felt kind of weird because I kind of like, I don't know if I maybe was reading too much into it. My mother did feel kind of weird also with that experience. But overall, when we were there, we kept to ourselves a lot. We did stay at this area called Villa Aurelia. So it was we were living in like an apartment.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it wasn't an Airbnb. So it didn't have like, well, most Airbnbs don't have like continental breakfast or anything like that, but it didn't have much. But it was very affordable because we bought it as a package, so it had everything included. So I wanted to discuss like different options of, looking for, I guess, and saving for certain things.
Yeah.
Um, but going there with my mom, I don't know how much she actually took out of, I guess, the culture there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I wanted to like kind of discuss on how we perceive like European culture as Dominicans sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
because it's kind of like seeing like, oh, I have to go there, like I have to experience this, and then when you're there, it's like, what, like I don't I don't know even what to tell her. Like I experienced a lot when I did study abroad because I was there for a month and a half, but I was also there with college students that were Italian. So they were like around my age, so they would take us out and we'll see like things. But with her, it was kind of different in terms of actually explaining certain things and then correlating to, a lot of things that I may not agree with in terms of, how the cultures interact with like DR and being Afro-Latina and stuff like that. So
Mm-hmm.
it was like an accomplishment to afford it, but then being out there was kind of like, okay, like, I don't know, what should I say? Like, in terms of the culture, at least. So I don't know if any of you guys like went to Europe and felt that way. But that's what I felt during that time. It was kind of like, how do I say that I don't agree with many of these things that I'm seeing? Like, so,
Mm-hmm.
but overall, like, traveling with children, it was very difficult in terms of like, crying and stuff like that. So it was new for me, but we did have a lot of fun with my two nephews. They were just amazing in
How
terms.
old are your nephews?
Well, one of them is no, he's 6 already. So during that time, he was 5.
Okay.
And then the smallest one was 2. So now he's turning 3.
Oh, wow.
But the 2-year-old, terrible twos at the time, but after some time, he got assimilated. And then we went in July, so it was very hot. It was like excruciating hot. So I can imagine how it is for them. But being able to actually afford that was, something that I always look up to. So that's like the major accomplishment for me. And I get a lot of messages sometimes of like, how do I do it? Or like, oh, what do you use to buy things? And I just do like a lot of research and following, bloggers that post things, and then you end up looking at it and saying, oh, this might work for me. But for the majority, what I try to at least discuss is, saving tips, stuff like that, points like credit cards. I do that all the time. Sometimes me and my husband like will say, oh, I need a new furniture or something. So
Mm-hmm.
we just buy it on the card, and then there you have some points for,
Which credit cards do you have?
So right
If
now I
you
have the
don't mind
JetBlue
sharing.
one. Yeah, no, that's fine. Right now I have the JetBlue one because I do use JetBlue a lot.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of like going to DR, sometimes my mom even asks me to buy her trip. I'm like, okay, so we just use the points for her. I was recommended the Sapphire card. I do use points from Expedia, which I didn't even know that they had that until one day I tried to book something and it said I didn't have to pay anything. So when I started reading up on it, you actually get points for like car service, like different type of things that, you would think like, if you're making a list of expenses and you say, okay, I have to pay for the car, and then that's something that you could cross out, then, that's beneficial.
Wait, quick question. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. You get points just from making the purchase on Expedia?
Yes. So, well, it has to be a purchase of like a trip or something like that. So what when I started, I would always use like travel packages. So I'll buy the hotel and the trip all together. I went to Panama using Expedia, Italy, and I believe there was another trip a long time ago though. So it was like 3 trips that I did in Expedia. And when I went to Panama, that's where I ended up, not having to pay the car. And I was like, huh, this is kind of weird. But they do give you points. I think it's called Expedia Rewards.
Mm-hmm.
So look into that. It's pretty decent in terms of, I had like maybe like $100. And I'm like, oh, okay, like I could use this for something. And then that was just something else that, I could check off and not have to pay for. And I started actually using it more often, especially with trips like the one from Italy. I booked it through there, even though the Air Europa is like, I would never take that airline. That's like,
Let's cross it out in my mind right now.
Yeah, I think I wrote a post about that. And that's another thing about affordability. You need to kind of like, assess, things in terms of like fares, because it was like this promise thing. So I paid for my mom, myself, and then all of a sudden you go to the airline and it's like 120 for baggage. And I'm like, what? I mean, luckily, I did get the fee waived going to Italy, because I just looked at her and I was like, what? Like, that's crazy. So I guess she felt a little, you know, bad for the situation because I didn't even know. I mean, their website is kind of like all over the place. So when you're like looking for the baggage, it's like it doesn't really explain, like doesn't tell you the flat rate. And I'm like, I can't look at it. But I just, you know, I booked it. I was like, whatever, I guess it's not going to be like more than $30. And then when I found out it was 120 each, I was just like, and then my sister was with her kids. We were like, what, 120 kids?
What?
Like, each of the kids. And then my sister had more baggage, of course, because she had like a bag just for like diapers and stuff. And then she had to pay like 120 for that. So luckily we did get all of them waived going.
Wow.
So yeah, so I was like, thank you.
But then how did you work it out coming back then?
No, coming back is kind of like, I tried to do it when we were in Italy, but there was kind of like a language barrier and it was like kind of hard to explain. So I just had to like pay it.
Oh,
I was just like, oh my God. But at least, you know, I did save on, you know, going there. Think about it. It was like 5 of us, $120. That's almost like a flight.
Yeah.
I'm like, I can't. But yeah, that was, I would never recommend that airline. And going there, it was kind of like bumpy and stuff. But overall, you know, I guess what I was trying to like, I guess, you know, the whole concept of, you know, it being my greatest accomplishment is because since I did started, you know, traveling when I was 19 and stuff like that, I always had this like kind of mindset of, you know, putting money away just for traveling, even if it was like $40, like it didn't matter to me. So, you know, a lot of people, you know, they look at certain like lifestyles and it's not really, I don't know if it's like a lifestyle. I don't know if you think you guys like, I don't know, but it's just me trying to like get out of New York City, which we were discussing earlier, and just, you know, traveling and, you know, doing things, you know, a lo loco, like the Dominicans say. But for the most part, that was my greatest accomplishment, being able to afford it. I have like, you know, tips and stuff like that, but I'll open it for questions. So it could just be like an interaction.
So traveling with your mom, was that the first time that you ever traveled internationally with her?
No, we've gone to like Aruba, like places like that. She's gone to a cruise, but her concept of Europe, that was like an accomplishment for, I guess for me, because she had this idea of traveling to Europe, and me and my sister were like, okay, you know, we need to make this become a, you know, a reality for her. And I'm just like, okay, like let's do it. But you know, it's just when I was there, we enjoyed the trip. It was amazing. But then it's like this like concept of accomplishing Europe and things like that. But it was more about the affordability part.
Okay. I do know where you're coming from, because when I travel to Spain, I feel conflicted myself.
Yeah.
I'm like, as much as I love Spain and the history, that same history, the same history, I'm like battling against.
Yeah.
So because of all the damage that they did to the Americas. So it's like, but I love
exactly how I felt.
Spain. Like, I'm like, if I ever retire, I probably retire in Spain. But I know what you're talking about, that conflict of interest kind of thing.
Yeah. So it's just like, it's an experience though, but I'm just like, I don't know.
I wanted to ask, do you feel like that conflict you have with the history creates conflict with socializing when you're out there?
No, not really. When we were there, we as in the restaurants primarily, like when we were out, and we stayed in Valle Aurelia. It's like well, back in the days, it was like a closed city of the Vatican. I would say that in that area, yes, because it was very local. We did interact with some people that when we went to this pizza shop, but then they would look at you kind of like, and then you would kind of like, you don't want to say anything. And even if you wanted to, you're just like, oh, maybe I'll not ask. So me and my sister, we, you know, my mom would stay in the apartment, and then me and her would like go out and see. We in the area there was like this mall, so we learned that there's a mall there. We learned everything that was around just in case, especially because she had kids and the supermarket. But it wasn't like I had to ask someone, because it was like this kind of like, I guess, barrier in terms of, you know, asking. And then of course the language too. When I went to study abroad, excuse me, back then it was a little bit easier. I even took Italian before I went, but that was years ago. I don't remember. That was like 10 years ago. I don't remember. I don't remember much about that. So when I got there, I was just like, just as, you know, lost as my mom was.
Mm-hmm.
But I think for her, it's just, it is a conflict when you try to interact with certain people out there. But it's not in a way because I don't want to. It's like, it's in the head. It's like in my head. Like I want to go ask that person, but then it's like, so that's normally how I feel, especially going back there in the Europe.
Mm-hmm. What were the highlights for your mom about going to Italy?
To be honest with you, it was more like the sites that we normally always see. Like we went to the Colosseum, we went to Fontana di Trevi. So it was really like those large, you know, sites. I already saw them when I went to study abroad. And I also, when I did go, I stayed in Genova. So I had to actually, you know, go from Genova to Rome and go there to Florence and different things. So for her, it was more like actually getting to see the big sites. And that was basically the highlights for her. Like, and then she would, of course, compare it, and then she'll talk about La Zona Colonial and DR, and oh, this is just so. I'm like, okay, and I'm like, I know the history behind it too. I mean, Dominicans also know that, you know, the history behind that, but that's why I was more conflicted with that, you know, situation. But I'm like, yeah. And she would, you know, mention certain things of like, oh, when they came to DR, and then you're just like, yeah, I know what happened. So
When she went to the Vatican, how did she experience that? Is she religious? Did she have a connection? Like, what was her experience?
she experienced the Vatican. I think that was like her. That's one of the main reasons why we took her too, because she wanted to, you know, see the Vatican City and hopefully like see the Pope and stuff like that. So that was one of her main highlights. So she did enjoy it. I did more at the Vatican than I did before. So that was actually a good experience in terms of like architecture. So I like that more, like a lot. So I'll go to like churches and stuff and just see like designs and try not to think about, you know, like other conflicts of DR and, you know, the Americas and stuff like that. But that was her highlight. She is Catholic. She's very religious. So it was a good experience for her too.
Mm-hmm. As your nephews are now starting to like going to school and learning about history, have they made any connections from what they saw there and now like as they're reading it in textbooks at school? Like,
I'm not sure actually, because my sister deals with them more in terms of schoolwork. But I know her oldest son, he's very smart in terms of like asking questions. Like she would ask questions like, oh, like, what is this? Like, and why? And then my sister would explain certain things, but I don't think she has gotten to, you know, literature that, you know, we know and stuff like that. Because he's very small. He's still like, he's turning 7 this year. But for the most part, when we were there, you know, we would just tell him the basics. Like when he asked, like, wow, what is this big Coliseum? And then we'll say, oh, you know, they used to have fights here back in the day and stuff like that. And the warriors, you know, make it like Spider-Man thing. Yeah. And then he would kind of grasp that idea. And then he would, there's like the outskirts of the Coliseum that they have like the structures and the statues and stuff like that. He would say like, oh, look at the warrior, and you know, so he knows that there's like people have fought there and stuff like that, but I don't think he has correlated that with any like real fighting in terms of like people actually dying.
Yeah.
But I'm assuming eventually he'll, know a lot about that.
Now, would you recommend people travel together with family of different generations, or like tips on how to travel with family of different generations?
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone knows like their family, best in terms of, when you travel, what you say. I have a lot of friends that they have like arguments with their parents, like to the extent that it's just like, oh, I'm not really like that. Like I will put a point across, and then usually my mom is just like looking at me, and then I'm looking at her, and then we like go to the next subject. But she knows what happened. But sometimes when you start talking about those conflicts, it kind of brings like trauma too. So I do still recommend going to Europe, experiencing that, because you wouldn't know how you kind of like interact in that environment without going.
Mm-hmm.
I would still go to Europe, maybe not Italy, but like different areas of Europe. I did, when I went to study abroad, I went with a close friend. She was my roommate. And one of her cousins lives in like the lower area of Italy. I think it's called Venafro, something like that. I don't know if I'm saying it right. But that was a great experience actually, because it's more like campo style. So people were actually more interactive there. So I think when I did go on study abroad, that area was like definitely more interactive. And, so I would recommend, maybe going to different areas that's not very like, Rome-ish. And I mean, I would always recommend someone to go there and experience it first, and then experiencing other areas of Italy that are also, diverse.
So you just went to Italy with your mom? Just Italy?
Yeah, we just went to Italy. We took the train to different areas, but just to Italy.
Okay. Is there a particular reason why like you stuck to Italy?
Because that was where she wanted to go. Like she would
that was her dream place. Got it.
She would literally say like, I can't die without going to Italia. And I'm like, okay.
Oh.
So then I'm like, okay. So we'll do, I mean, we were used to always taking her to like islands. So when we did the cruise, like we will stop in different islands, and she's very like beachy. She loves that too. But she was just stuck on Italy, and now she feels as accomplished as I do. Even though we are thinking of I was going to do a trip this year with her too. But with this coronavirus, and now we're on lockdown, and it's gotten all over the place. But I do want to take her to different areas of Europe, like Venafro, where I went, that has like a little bit of diversity. And she knows a couple of her friends that live in Spain now. They went from DR to Spain and stuff like that. So she also wants to eventually go to Spain. So that might be something else that I consider with her.
That might be very helpful because, like you said, the language barrier, maybe she couldn't communicate. But if she goes to Spain, she feels a little bit more at ease because at least she can talk to people.
We actually had a connecting flight in Madrid to go to Italy. And she actually was like, talking in Spanish to people and connecting to the next airplane. And I'm like, oh, okay, this is cool. So we'll probably think about doing something like that, or maybe going to different places in Europe. With the kids, it was a kind of a different approach, because it was the first time I ever planned something with kids. So I'm like, it's gonna be a long flight. Do I really want to have a connecting flight somewhere else, or stay in another site, but have to take a plane there? So it was gonna be a little bit too much. So that's why we decided to just stick to Italy. Maybe next time around it'll just be like me and my mom or my sister. That way we could just go anywhere and not, stress about
because at the same time, how do you plan activities that cater to both?
Yeah, I mean,
Like, I'm sure children need more interactive things, and parents
yes.
probably need things that are more calm down.
Yeah, I mean, with my oldest nephew, it was easier. He would walk by himself. We even bought that little thing to attach him, so just in case we were in like large crowds. But with the little one, it was kind of like shredded. And then the stroller got lost, and it was just when we were getting there. You know, usually you take the stroller with you to the gate. They'll take it, put it under, and then when you get out, you'll see it there. And then we got out and we were like, where's the stroller? So we were just like, my sister was like, I can't believe this. They better find our stroller. I mean, they did. So we had one whole day without a stroller for the smallest one. So it was like everyone was taking turns. So that day, I want to say that that day was like the worst. It was like a hot mess. We had to get back to the apartment a little earlier because we were just all tired. But luckily they did deliver it so the next day. So then we had it for the next day, and I was like, thank you. Oh, I was like, I don't know. But I find things online. I was like, look, I found a rent-a stroller. Like, we could just go and rent one. It's fine. But then when they delivered it for us, we were just like super happy. And then after that, everything was easier. But for the most part, everything we did was kind of like geared towards my mom. So we did a lot of sightseeing instead of like little kid stuff. But it was just, catering to them in terms of when they start like crying or they want food, and then you're like, okay, we have to stop here and we have to stop there. We did find actually a lot of things to do for the oldest, my oldest nephew, because he saw a Lego store and then that was it for him. So it's interesting when traveling with children sometimes. And it was my first experience. I've never like actually traveled, like say like do an itinerary and have children included in it. So it was interesting.
So how did you book the activities? You said you booked the hotel and the flights through Expedia.
Yeah, so I did the hotel and the flight together. I was recommended to this, I think it's called Tickets with a K, no, with a Q. And that's actually amazing. I want to spell it out. Tickets, it's TIQETS. And that was actually good because it actually gives you the prices for children. It'll tell you like, oh, you could go to the Vatican and children's are free. So we didn't pay, I think for the smallest one. My oldest might have been free too, or maybe reduced. I vaguely remember, but I know my youngest nephew was definitely free. So they do charge almost the same amount that you would pay if you just go there. So by the time we got to the Vatican, you just get there at the time that they pick you up to start, the whole tour. So we actually did one of those tour things for my mom, so she could like kind of like experience everything with like a guide. But for the most part, we did 2 trips there to the Colosseum and the Vatican there. But everything else, like the Fontana de Trevi, I'm very like train, like I like going on the train. And since I lived there practically for like a month and a half, I told my mom, the train system is just like here. Like you just see where's point A, what's going this way, what's going that way. And it worked out. So, but it got complicated. We were with a stroller, my sister carrying her son, and then me with the stroller. But it was a good experience doing that and planning it, because they leave the planning to me. So I'm like, okay, I could get this done. So it was interesting and fun.
Is there any place that you're looking forward to going in the future? You said Spain, any other?
Yeah, well, in Europe, Spain, I think before Spain, I want to go to Portugal for sure. So Portugal would probably be my number one next place. But I'm already trying to plan a trip to Hawaii by the end of this year. So I really want to experience that. But when I saw the flight, I'm like, oh no, it's so far away. At least for New York, in Cali, it's like on that side. So then it's like, I think I would have to make a stop in Cali to then go over there. But I'll definitely do it. I mean, I went to Thailand. I was on that flight for like 30 hours. So I think I could make that happen.
Yes, yes, yes. Do you guys have any questions of anything that you want to ask? Or is there anything else you would like to share with us? We love learning.
No, I guess just, at least for the youth, if they're, they'll see this later on, to just like manage money in terms of, how do you afford to actually pay for a trip for you, yourself, and then for your family. If you do, decide to do something like I did, which was to just book a trip for my mom because she really wants to go to the, somewhere. I mean, for me, I started this habit of taking at least $100 of my paycheck to a travel fund, and that worked for many years. And then, of course, when it all depends on how much you can afford, how much you could take out of that. And as you progress in life, maybe you get another job, you want to increase that a little bit more. But usually what I do is I try to, at the end of the month, be able to have like a plane ride anywhere. So whether it's like DR or anywhere that you want to go. So that's important to me, especially with being raised in like a low socioeconomic household and stuff like that. How do we manage funds that are coming in when you're like a college student? You know what I mean? And that's what I try to tell a lot of my students. A lot of what I do in terms of financial aid is, yeah, I do process loans and, process different grants that the students may receive, but then what are you doing, educationally or, financially to save those funds for later? So that's what my main goal is with, my blog, as well as the new company that I recently launched. So hopefully, that plays out well.
And your company is about what? It's about
right now it's called Viajerex & Co. So what it is like a travel brand in terms of like little things that you could take away with you more in relation to your identity. So currently we just launched like a couple of stickers that you could use. So like when you go travel, eventually I do want to brand myself to.
Those look really cool. I have seen those online.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you. So I do want to branch out to then create something that could be for students, but it's a work in progress. I literally like just did the LLC like a couple of months ago, and then it could be a lot in terms of doing it all yourself. And then it's like I was raised in a household with like schools, everything. So I only have like one family member that is a business owner. So it's kind of like, I went to her a lot for like advice, but then it's like, you're stuck doing everything. But for the most part right now, it's just travel accessories. And then hopefully I will build that to be something larger for like the youth and maybe have like a charitable component to that.
That's actually my aspiration as well. So maybe we can
next for
and work
sure.
together.
Yeah, maybe we could talk about that because it's hard. You want to kind of like do it all, but then it's like you can't because your income, and then I work a 9 to 5, and then it's like, oh my God, how can I do that? How can I give to other people like, but have the basis to like kind of do that? So then that's kind of like what I'm starting now. So it's a long haul, but I do see that in the future.
I did so. I have a question. How old were you when you started this habit, and what inspired you to become so responsible with your finances? Because it's something that, like you're saying, we're not taught. So I'm just wondering What inspired
I wasn't really taught either. I think it was just seeing my mom. You know, I was raised with both parents until one point. But then after that, seeing my mom just do everything on her, own. And then just being, then I kind of like, when I reached high school, I was just kind of like, okay, I think I could afford my own laundry, or I think I could, pay for my own phone or something like that. So I started working, and then just kind of like, for me, it was more relieving the stress from my mom, to not have her do everything for me. And then after that, that just developed, better habits in terms of just being more independent and not having to rely on certain things. And then it just trickled. And then my older sister was always like that too. So I kind of had her to kind of like latched on to her with many responsibilities that she had, because she's like 4 years older than me. She was the one that used to, do everything for my mom, paperwork, everything. So that sense of like kind of responsibility in the household, I, grew up seeing. And then financially, it just kind of trickled in. And then when I started college and, I started traveling, I knew that travel was something that I wanted to do. So then I was like, okay, how am I going to make this happen without asking my mom for, funds? But for the main part, which is what I try to tell students that I interact with, is, if you're getting money somehow, whether it's a grant, just don't spend it. Like, I have a lot of students that will get checks every semester, and it would just be blown away in certain things. And then sometimes things happen. Like for me, my last year in college, I didn't get one of the grants I was expecting because it took me 5 years instead of 4 years to graduate. So then I had to manage that year, but I already had something, I guess I could say I had already saved enough in terms of what I was getting from scholarships and grants and stuff like that. But the responsibility, I guess, and, wanting to, it has to come from within. It has to come and let's say if I have a lot of friends that are kind of like irresponsible with certain things, there has to be a point where you say, okay, I need to change this. How am I going to do that? Am I going to use my tax refund to pay my bills off, or, stuff like that. So it started at a young age. I started working when I was 15 in retail. So I would say that that's when it started. But for the most part, just seeing my mom, practically be a single mother. And then that I was like, oh, I want to be able to be independent. And that was very early on.
Yeah.
What was the first
We've
place?
all been there. I'm sorry, Orlando, can you repeat that?
Yeah, what was the first place that you visited? I'm not sure if you covered it.
Oh, no. The first place was Costa Rica. So that was, well, aside from the many trips I've taken to DR every summer, Costa Rica was my first trip in 2009, I believe, yeah.
Costa Rica changes lives, ladies, you see?
Costa Rica was just, I can't even explain it. I felt like when I was there, it was just so relaxing. And just, I could say that I interacted a lot, and that was like my first, experience going somewhere other than DR. So it was great. I really liked it. And, people interact with you, like they would just come up to you and you're like, wow, this is great. So it was a wonderful experience. And then after that, I was just like, I need to go again. I actually went, like, it was actually also my second trip, because then I took my husband, at the time he was my boyfriend, and I was like, hey, let's go to Costa Rica. So it's a wonderful place.
Very, very nice.
So I was going to ask if you typically travel solo, but I'm assuming you don't.
No, that was actually a goal for me for this year. I'm still, thinking where to go. I'm actually very shy. Sometimes when I'm traveling with other people, I tend to kind of interact a little bit more. But then when I'm by myself, I'm like, oh, do I go? So that's kind of like something that I'm still working on. In terms of being, more vocal when I'm by myself. But I do feel that if I just put myself in the situation, that I'll be totally different. Because you do it like if you're by yourself and you have to go somewhere, you're gonna ask someone. You're not gonna just, go on a
No,
whim.
and you know what it is too? It's an experience you haven't had, so you may think this is
Yeah,
how you're going to be, but the reality
yeah,
is not that because you don't really know how you're gonna be.
yeah. And
And
then
you'll surprise yourself.
me and my husband also, I started traveling when I started dating him. So it was kind of like everywhere was just with him, because we were together. It was just how things happened. I want to say that the only experience that I may had solo was study abroad, because I really didn't know anyone there. My roommate, I didn't know who she was at the time, and we were close, but we were like mutual friends. So it was kind of like I was getting to know her too. So I mean, now we're close friends. So that's the only experience. But I had someone, she was my roommate. So that was kind of like I had her there to rely on her, and she relies on me, and then we would do things together. But solo, like just me on a plane by myself, no, I haven't done that yet. Only DR when my mom used to ship me away, but other than that.
I love how she says, ship me away.
Yeah. I would literally be in DR for me and my sister would literally be in DR for like 3 months, like the whole summer.
Wow. What part of DR?
Well, my mom is from Santiago. She's from Licey. That's where she was born, but we were practically raised in La Capital. Yeah, so when we went every summer, we would go to the capital and stay there with our cousins.
Very nice. I am from Santiago too.
Oh, okay.
But not from the Licey. You know where Clínica Corominas is? In the center, where like Iglesia Altagracia, the Monumento.
Oh, yeah, yes.
Like that area there. That's where
okay.
I'm from. Yep. Well,
Cool.
I know you went to Puerto Rico recently, and you have been many times, I believe.
Well, Puerto Rico was just, I went one time in the past, but it was a cruise. And it wasn't really, when you go on cruises, you do like short little things, and then they're like, oh, by 5 you have to be back. So then I really didn't experience what I would want to. When I went to Puerto Rico on the cruise, it was kind of like we just stayed in the old San Juan, like the old San Juan area. And then that was it. But last September, I went with one of my closest friends. She's Puerto Rican, so she's been to Puerto Rico all the time. So we went to different areas. We went to Gilligan Island, and that island was just amazing. I didn't ever think that there could be an island like that, because it really doesn't have sand, and it's a whole island very like low. So it was an experience, and it was very like soothing. That's, I would say, one of the best countries to like go and visit, to just relax and connect with your soul. I think I had like a soul connection when I was there. I always post about that, but it was an amazing time there.
I'm like taking notes. Gilligan Island.
Yeah, you should. It's amazing. It's in Ponce. It's like more on the south side, which is amazing too. I did a tour with someone that my friend found on Airbnb. So Airbnb also has like tour guides and stuff like that. Sometimes they're very like 5 people, 3 people. So you actually like experience and connect with, the people. So that was amazing, because they took us like from literally San Juan area, because we were staying in like Loiza area, all the way to the south. So I was like, wow. And we did that in one day and did a whole bunch of things in one day. So that was good.
Very, very nice. It makes me want to go to, you see my screen? It makes me want to be like right there.
Yeah, I'm an island person too. Like, I love islands. It's just so relaxing sometimes.
Yes. And no matter where I go, I'm like, can I have hot weather? Can I have the beach? Like,
yeah.
Can I just, anywhere I go, transported?
Oh, my mom, now that you say that, my mom actually, we went to Santa Marianella in Italy. So I wanted to take her to like the beachy area. So she liked that too. And we took a train there. So that was interesting. And people were actually, now that people were more interactive there. So it was that area was actually one of her highlights as well. So that was a good. Now it's like everything we did, it's like coming to me now. So yeah, that was good for her too.
How was the food? Was it what you expected? Like, at least, was it
Yeah.
what she expected? Or
I think for her, I'm not too sure because my mom, she's not very like vocal with certain things. But I could tell, when she just looks at the plate and is like, "That's it." I'm like, "Yeah, we're like in a gourmet type of restaurant." So it's like things that, but she did love the food, like in terms of we had like cheeses and different things, wine, and she loved that. There was one particular restaurant that we went to that it was just like, luckily they had fries for the kids, so I'm like, oh, thank God they have fries for the kids. So it was good. But I feel like that was the first day when we went to the Coliseum. So I think it was more like, okay, what are we gonna eat? And when we went to the restaurant, she was like, oh my God, like that's it. But then after that, she kind of like assimilated to, how it is. Like then I was like, Mom, we're gonna go here. They have pizza, like stuff like that. So then she kind of like, got the gist of that. But she did love the food in terms of, tasting it, and it was good for her.
super fresh?
Yeah.
Everything organic, pretty much.
She loved cheese. My sister and her loves different type of cheeses, so that was like the highlight for her in terms of like food.
And the gelato. Oh my God, you're
Oh,
making me like hungry right now.
So we did go to a lot of gelato places for the kids, especially.
And the coffee, did she try coffee there?
Yeah, we tried it more in the Valle Aurelia area because since we had to take the train, we will always stop at this cafe and kind of get it there and then go, which also was a language barrier because they would just look at you and I'm like, can I have that? But for the most part, she loved the coffee too. And then a lot of the coffee that they gave us there was like these small little cups. So then that was kind of like, she's used to like the jarro and like drinking, and I'm like, no, it's these little small cups. So but it was great. It was an experience for her, and I feel like that's why it's an accomplishment, because she's able to, experience how, other cultures are. And she actually likes to travel, but she wouldn't do it like without us, like her by herself or something like that. No. So that's why I want to like focus more on actually going on trips with her also, maybe every year.
Does your sister travel too, or does she just join you guys on this trip?
Well, she traveled with us to Italy, so she was there too with her.
No, that's what I'm saying. But like, is she a traveler?
Oh yeah, she's a traveler. I'm more focused on traveling all the time and just finding the next trip, like 3, 4 a year. But she's a teacher, so she's like more traveling with her family during the summer, during times that she has breaks and stuff like that. But she does travel. I want to say like at least twice a year she goes, and she travels with her kids. So I think her last trip, well, with her husband, she went to Amsterdam recently. And then she went to Curacao with her children, which I wasn't there. So that's why the experience with the kids, I was like, oh, she's used to, everything that's her kids. But yeah, but she is a traveler.
Very, very nice. So you also have your website, Sueños de una Viajera. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
So with Sueños de una Viajera, I mean, that was the first page. So it started there. It started there, where I just started like documenting like the things that I did, or more for, people to just kind of like copy, like, hey, if you want to go here, you want to experience here, look at my page and go. But recently I started, having stories of other people. So they would like send me stories of, their experience, just to kind of like showcase that our young adults traveling, for, you know, people to read and stuff like that. So Sueños de una Viajera is the blog, and then Viajerex & Co. is more like the business. So I kind of like recently have left Sueños de una Viajera at the back, but I'm trying to like reconnect with it on both pages simultaneously. But for the most part right now, it's more, you know, stories of women traveling the world.
Beautiful. I know we have just Serena, she just joined. Do you have any questions?
And I have a question.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I see that you're married, right?
Yes.
Correct?
Mhm.
And your husband is a traveler also. Do you put him to travel, or was he a traveler from the beginning? Like,
I think, I mean, we were both very young. So I started dating my husband when we were both, well, I was 19, he was 20. So it was kind of like we kind of just said, oh, let's go here. And then we ended up going. So it was kind of like an experience, both of us together. And then he just loved it. And then I was like, okay, we're going to do this every year. So then it kind of like sprung off from there.
cool.
Serena, you were going to ask a question?
No, it's coughing.
Oh,
What were you guys talking about? Sorry, I came in so late.
traveling with parents and with nephews, so different generations in one same trip, and she took them to Italy. So that was her biggest accomplishment, being able to take her family and mom to Italy.
My mom always told me that a vacation with me is not really a vacation. Porque yo jodo mucho.
I mean, my mom is very like, she's very like into her like nephews. Like we did consider not bringing them, but then they didn't have no one to stay with because my sister's husband was not gonna just, you know, take 2 weeks off from like work, you know. So it was kind of like, who do we leave them with? So then my mom was like, "Pero take them with us," like, and we were like, okay. So it was kind of like her idea too. So we were like, okay. And then we just did like a whole family trip. So that was an experience, for me at least, because I've never really traveled and tailored to children. But for the most part, the trip was fun. I mean, even with kids, you know, there's high and lows with children anyway. So it can be stressful, but then it's like, oh, it's so fun to be with them. So yeah, but for the most part, it was kind of like more of my mom's idea, because she didn't want to leave the kids by herself. But I mean, with you know, in New York, and I was like, okay, let's make it happen.
What were they eating the whole time? Pizza every day? Because you know kids are picky eaters.
Well, pizza, fries. Luckily, we found restaurants that kind of like included kids menus in it.
Okay.
So it was good for them. And then I stayed in like an apartment complex. So we had to kind of like cook our own food and buy food if we wanted to eat in the morning and things like that. So we did go to the supermarket and get stuff for them. So it was,
that makes it more affordable too for
yeah.
families to travel if they just stay in a house and they can cook their own meals.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah, and actually things in Italy is not even that expensive in terms of like money, when we went to like the supermarkets, because I would use my converter and it was almost the same as what we paid. So it was just managing. We had to like manage, okay, what we're gonna eat in the morning when we wake up, and then make sure that we had milk and stuff like that. And then one of my nephews was 2, so at the time, you know, milk, 2-year-old needs milk. So we had to make sure that was something that we planned for too.
And did they adjust to the time difference pretty easily?
Yes, actually, I'm surprised. I think I was more tired than them. I don't know if they even noticed the time difference. I mean, the little one was sleeping the majority of the plane ride, and it was a good day flight because we were flying overnight. So it was kind of like we slept overnight. But yeah, I think they assimilated pretty well to the jet lag.
Well, if no one else has any more questions, anyone? One last round.
I wanted to ask about her blog, which is what I was trying to glance at. So, as someone who has always thought about blogging and never getting to it, um, like what has been your journey with it, and how do you make sure to stay on it and be proactive with it?
I think it's more like a time. It's more like structure. I try to put something in the day. So before I would just focus on myself, like okay, me traveling. But then I realized, that's kind of like not, I guess, feasible because I'm not traveling all the time. So it did have like my blog in the beginning did have, I would say, like kind of like a decline in the sense of I didn't feel a lot of interaction because it's like I traveled, stayed 10 days here, and then now I'm 5 months in New York. What do I do? You get me? But then I started incorporating more things that I do here in New York and certain things just to kind of like get it going and I guess get an inspiration. But for the most part, in terms of actually writing, I try to think about something that I want to talk about and just like I guess like write two or three sentences a day. Like I literally do that. But I do give myself deadlines. So I'm pretty good with that in the sense of saying, okay, I want to write about this, but let me give myself a month deadline. And then I'll, post it. And then that's basically how I started off. Right now, I haven't really written anything. The last article that I wrote was for what I did in Puerto Rico, and then posting other people's, trips. But I do recommend that. Sometimes I would reach out to different bloggers and say, hey, I want to write something for you. And if they accept, then that's a good way to start.
That's nice. Good advice.
Yeah. I like the 2 or 3 sentences a day.
Yeah,
I am in the same boat that I'm like, I want to have a blog, and I'm like, I have a lot of content to write.
Yeah.
But I still don't get to write it.
Yeah, I'm waiting for that website, Vanessa. When is that website taking off?
One day.
Yeah, I think it's really
You
about
got all the time in the world right now.
But you know what? I built my website in a week.
No, my website is live, but it's just I don't post anything.
Yeah. I think it really depends on what works best for me. It was like the 2 or 3 sentences a day. So I'll put a title, like I know this is the concept. Now it's like, okay, let me start the intro and just put it. Then sometimes you even go a week without. And then, I bought a book, so that helped me too. So instead of typing, I started writing something. And then, you're thinking constantly. So sometimes I would be at work, literally trying to answer a student's question. And then something just came up from like a trip. And I was like, okay. And then as soon as they leave, I'm there writing whatever it was, even if it's like words. Like it could be just a word and then you just write it, but that word is going to trigger, what you were going to write about. So I kind of do that. I kind of stopped doing that because I kind of stopped writing to focus on the business. But for the most part with Sueños de una Viajera, that's how it started. Me just writing simple words and then putting it into like sentences. And then I started realizing that you don't have to really write a lot. I've gone to many, blogging sites just to get like inspiration, and it's literally like an essay, but like a normal essay, like a 5-paragraph essay. So then it's like how to condense everything that you're thinking in a 5-paragraph essay. So it's kind of like hard too. But for the most part, that's how I kind of manage that.
Well, thank you so much for giving us all of that information on how to get started with our own blogs.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Have you guys heard of Help a Reporter Out?
Huh? I can't. What did you say?
Have you guys heard about Help a Reporter Out?
No.
What is that?
How to get published?
No, I never heard of that.
Yeah, so it's called Help a Reporter Out, and it's shortened as HARO, so HARO. And if you go to their website, it's totally free, or you can I think there's ways that you can pay. So you let them know the things that you're interested in getting. Basically what it is you sign up. I've done it for the free one. And they send you questions 3 times a day. And there are reporters out that want to write on certain things, travel, for example. And so they're concentrating on one, it depends what they're concentrating on. And they give you questions and they say if you're interested in writing for them. So you write to them.
Oh, okay.
So basically you just, and then they'll choose whoever is interesting to them or that would fit what they are writing about. So that makes it easy too. And sometimes it says anonymous, they don't say who it is, but they're really big magazines that they just don't want to tell you who they are until they're interested on you, and then they let you know. So that's pretty cool if you guys are interested in getting published.
That's really cool.
That is really cool.
And
Thank you for that.
I just wrote that down.
Business can get published.
Say that again.
Since you guys have businesses too, your businesses can get published.
Oh,
All these ideas, guys.
Make that money.
Put them out in the world. Yes.
That's why we're here.
I literally have a list right across from me, right here, and it says the places that I want to be published in, and I have a list of about 10.
I know. I saw Univision on there the other day.
Oh, you did?
Right.
No, but that one I want to go live. Like I want to go live, like as a person.
yeah.
So, hey, I'm putting it out there in the universe. If anybody knows how to get me
It's coming.
there.
It's coming. It's coming. Universe hears you.
Right? I just want to see it every day.
Speaking of, I just got an email for a podcast, but it's called like hanging out with cool people or talking to cool people.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to be connected to this, he was saying the email said that he's getting like I guess because people are listening to podcasts more, that he wants to record more.
What is the name of it?
Name of it is, I'll tell you right now, Jeff. I think that's his name. So I can tell you exactly what it is. Sorry, hold on. That's not it. I don't even remember where I got it. I'll give it to you when I figure it out, where I received it.
Sounds good. Well, I love that this ended up with like a session of like helping each other out with resources and things like that. So I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Do you guys have any questions? Well, thank you for joining today. Looking forward to seeing you on more travels and taking off with your company, Viajer X Co. and Co. Right?
Yeah.
That's how you pronounce it too, Viajer X.
Viajer X.
Viajer
like
X.
Spanish, just say Viajer X.
Yeah. That Co. And seeing your blog, Sueños de una Viajera, also take off. We're here to help each other and, you know, to support each other in everything we can.
Sure,
so thank you for joining this virtual travel
thank you for having
party us. And we will be doing one every day, so hope you join us. And thank you for everything.
Thank you.
Talking to Cool People is the name of the podcast.
Yes.
You heard?
Talking to Cool People? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Talking to Cool People.
Oh,
and we are cool people already, so.
Yeah, it sounds like a
definitely.
Very, so you gotta talk about whatever you want. Okay, that's
all right. Besos and